Good morning, guys, and welcome to the podcast. I've got a fantastic guest for you today talking about overcoming obstacles, resiliency. Um, he is Robert Foster. I'm really happy to have him on and introduce him to the audience and shed some wisdom and shed some inspiration and positivity for the community. So, Rob, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, like you have an amazing story. Just briefly introduce yourself and we'll get into the questions.
Okay. I'm a father of five, single. I manage a fitness business. I host my podcast, Shut Up and Grind. I'm a motivational speaker, and I coach track and field, boys and girls, high school level. And so I don't know how I find time to do all of that, but I do. But my passion is about helping people to believe in themselves. So all of those things that I do lead down that path of inspiring people and getting people to believe in themselves.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I really love that. And we'll dive right into it. And you've turned significant personal challenges into victories, like being the fastest man in the world with one kidney, and you've completed over 170 races. What mental shifts are crucial for you to transform these adversities into achievements?
The first thing is to not accept the outcome. That's the very first thing. So my podcast was born, actually, no, we got to go back to the very, very beginning with my father. So my father was an engineer. I'm the youngest of seven kids. And we just watched this man just do the most extraordinary things. Like a quick example, he liked to get cars and refurb them. So he brought home this car, right? I kid you not, it was smashed in like halfway. And I remember my mom and my sister looking at him driving up the driveway, and we're like, what the heck is that? And 6 months later, I was driving it. So that mentality, it really started with him. There was nothing he couldn't do. He was going to find some way to accomplish what he needed to accomplish. And then that trickled down to us kids. For my personal drive, being the youngest of seven, we were all athletes. And so for the longest time, I was always so-and-so's little brother. And I hated it. It was like, I wanted to be me. Like, I'm my own person. I'm not just some little offset of my older sibling. And it happened with every one of them. So I used that to forge my own personal drive, because I was like, I'm going to make a name for myself. And then I started getting my name in papers and started breaking records and winning and all this other stuff. So to directly answer your question, and when I was 34, I had a bad injury. I was competing in the high jump, and it was like my reclaim myself story, because I was overweight for one time in my life. And so once I lost the weight, I was like, I want to get back on the track again. And so I get back on the track, and I end up rupturing my patella tendon. So like my kneecap was probably a good 4 inches up my quad. It was a bad knee injury.
Wow.
So we'll fast forward, I get to the ER, and the ER doctor takes off the brace that the EMTs put on. And without missing a beat, you are never going to run or jump again. And now, as I mentioned earlier, I have 5 kids. So when this happened, the age range I have twin boys who were 4 months at the time, and my oldest was 10. So you're telling me, A, I'm an athlete. I just transitioned from the restaurant industry into the fitness industry. And now you're telling me I'm never going to run or jump again? And I let the emotions get to me at first. But then I was like, no. I was like, you don't get to decide that. Like, you do not get to decide that. I said, your job is to put my knee back in place, and then I'll go to physical therapy, and then I'll take it from there. Like, it's up to me to decide if I come back from this. And when I tell you, I know I just unload your line. If you want to interject, feel free.
No, continue, because I really love the mental mindset, because a lot of times people, they don't know what's in you. They don't know what the universe has in store for you. To say these overarching things like you're not gonna, or you only have so and so, let's just continue on with the story.
Yeah, so I remember during my physical therapy, they gave me minimums of things to do. They did not give me maximums. So I maximized everything. And people were like, are you doing too much? Are you doing too much? I'm like, leave me alone. It's my body. If I feel I'm doing too much, I will slow myself down. I'm daring, I'm bold, but I'm not an idiot. So if something's hurting me, I'm not going to do it. But I attack that PT They said I was going to be in rehab for 18 months. I got out in 4. And I ran again. Now, granted, I ran like a newborn deer, right? But I still ran. It just was 4 months after being told I would never run or jump again.
Oh,
And it was once both of my feet were off the ground, it was at that moment I solidified on making a full recovery. And so, but now it had to come full circle. I was like, I have to get back on the track. If I don't get back on the track, then the injury still wins. So it took me 7 years.
wow.
But I ended up getting back on the track. So let me just pause the story there, because in between that time, I donated a kidney to my sister.
Mhm.
So that's where the fastest man with one kidney thing came from. And I was just getting the strength back in my knee. And now I had to cut my abdomen open to save my sister's life. Imagine getting that phone call on Christmas morning in 2009. Happy day, cooking dinner, kids are playing with their toys. And then my sister calls to say that her kidneys are failing and she needs one. Out of all of my siblings, I'm in the fitness business, so I'm the healthiest. So it just made sense that I would be the one to do it. And so did that. And so again, they were giving me this long rehab schedule and everything. And so there was an obstacle race that came in. This was in 2011. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to be ready by that race. So this happened in May, the end of May in 2011. This race was in September of 2011. And now, mind you, they just ripped out my abdomen to remove the kidneys. But I was like, I'm going to be back by that race. And I ended up doing it, brought a team. And now I'm addicted to these obstacle races. Part of it is the dopamine hit from being told I wouldn't be able to run. And now it's almost like I'm running on a spike. I do enjoy the obstacle races. I love bringing my clients to the obstacle races because they find out strengths that they didn't know that they had. And we can circle back on some of this. I just want to get back to completing the circle.
Yeah.
And so I get back on the track. And my goal was to just run and jump. And I ended up winning the gold medal. And this was in the 2016 U.S. Transplant Games. And I ended up winning, and I took second in the long jump, and I took third in the 100 meters. And again, that's after being told you would never do this again. So in 2018, the 2 years in between, I got back to like my usual training, because now I jumped, I didn't pop anything. And so I started training hard. I'm like 2018, I'm sweeping all of my events. And I ended up winning 5 gold medals. This was in Salt Lake City, Utah. So I won the 100 meters, the 200 meters, the long jump, the discus, and the high jump. And along the way, I didn't realize that I broke the world record in the 100 meters. I knew I ran well. Like, I timed the gun when I knew I ran well. I actually overheard another team talking about, you guys hear the guy from Team New England broke the 100 meter record? I was like, somebody broke a record? I was like, well, they're talking about me. I was like, I'm literally the fastest man in the world with one kidney. So that's how that went.
Interesting. Yeah. So we talked about this basically this inability or this ability to shut out negative and just progress and accomplish things. Talk about when you face numerous setbacks, what strategies do you find most effective in bouncing back stronger, both in the moment and in the future? Like, what kind of what strategies? Like, do you block it out? Do you tune it in? Or some people are able to compartmentalize. What do you do?
So anytime any type of setback arises, like you can see right over here, just yesterday, I hosted a panel up on this topic. So it was myself and 5 of my former guests. Like we do this on Mondays at 2 p.m. Eastern. And I pick a topic and we just go round table and we talk about the topic. So yesterday's topic was just about what you asked. And for me personally, so now I know people receive information differently. So as I give this answer, this is what works for me, is I have to, like, one side you have problem, one side you have solution. Stress lives in the middle, right? So the longer you stay in the middle, you're going to be pulling your hair out. So if something happens, I try to fix it as quickly as possible and get right back on the path. Like, I don't waste time in how did this happen and how did we get here? It's right. The car is flat, change the tire and let's go. It's like, we have to go. I'm not going to waste energy talking about how inconvenient it is or whatever. And the other part is, one thing that we can't renew is time, right? What we can't renew is time. So people set themselves up first thing in the morning. The alarm goes off, and what do? They hit snooze. So you're starting your day procrastinating, and that is no longer usable time. Even though it's 5 minutes, that's just 5 minutes that you lost, right? That could have been the 5 minutes that got you to work on time. That could have been the 5 minutes to watch that one YouTube video that's going to change your life, right? So you got to prioritize the things that you need to get done and just get them done. Like here in the gym world, I tell people, I was like, get up first thing in the morning. Oh, I'm not a morning person. Right now, you're not a fit person either. So to get something that you want, you have to do something differently. And so I tell them, like, get them in the morning. Now there's no excuse. Now you can't blame traffic. Now you can't blame getting stuck at work. You have to put yourself in a position to be successful. I know that was a long answer.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And it's basically it's grit, and then it's discipline, it's determination, it's hard work, consistency. And so obviously torn patellar tendon or a kidney, these are huge compared to a lot of people are afraid to get up in front of people and speak or start a business. And so how do you, like, once you're able to defy the odds, do the impossible, speaking in front of hundreds of thousands of people is not is a piece of cake. In your program, Speak About Yourself Out Loud, talk about your journey as a public speaker, empowering others, overcoming setbacks, and looking, and we'll go from there.
I got into management at 15 years old. So by the time I was 20, I had already given hundreds of staff meetings, staff trainings, new menu rollouts. So getting in front of people never bothered me, right? So it wasn't until 2016 where like speaking was like a thing. So I knew there were speakers like Zig Ziglar and Jim Rohn, but now there's just the average everyday people out there earning a good living speaking. Are you familiar with Eric Thomas?
Not so much. I know Zig Ziglar, but not Eric Thomas. No.
Okay, yeah. So Eric Thomas, he's one of the big dogs up there. He's right up there with Tony Robbins and them. And so he had a speaker boot camp in 2017. And so I went down. This is down in Atlanta, Georgia. And again, going back to what I said about the 5 minutes that could change everything. Down at this, they rented out a $10 million mansion in the Buckhead section of Atlanta. Like, beautiful place. And on day 2, Eric Thomas was actually in attendance, which is great because I was scheduled to speak on day 2. So they give you 10 minutes, right? Now, this is the difference between being someone who can speak and someone who's a speaker, because there's a difference. So I went up there as someone who can speak. I got up there and I figured they give us 10 minutes. Let me just try to cram in as much stuff as I can cram in this 10 minutes because I didn't know any better. So I get up there, I do it. I'm making the eye contact. The voice is projecting. People are responding. And I thought I did a really good job, right? So I land back in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm driving back down here to Rhode Island. And my phone rings. It is Eric Thomas's CEO. And this one 4-minute phone call completely transformed how I deliver my stories now. So he's, hey, Robert, I wanted to thank you for coming out. And he said, I got to say, he said, you are far and away the most polished speaker there. Like, out of all 41 speakers, you were the most polished. But then he paused, right? And the pause is never good. So he goes, you're my most frustrating type of student. And I was like, okay, I'm listening. I'll be the sponge. And he said, your story was so polished that there was no emotion in it. If you would just glossing over details. He said, you spoke about getting fired from your job while your wife was 7 months pregnant with twins. You could have spent all 10 minutes on that story alone. And then he just started going into how I could have expanded that story to make it more impactful for the audience. You were just up there just telling, your mechanics are there. I don't have to teach you any of the mechanics. He said, but we have to strip your story down and tell it slower and insert that emotion. Like, that's what's going to drive the audience, not just to get up there and just talk about stuff. And that one phone call made a huge difference. So now to directly answer your question, because I feel like that setup was needed, is so what I do is I help people go from that person who can or wants to speak and become a speaker. So for example, I was on an Instagram live once. I was listening to this woman. She was actually local here in Rhode Island. And she, in her early 30s, she had a stroke and a heart attack. So I'm listening to her on this Instagram live tell the story. And there was just so many details that she didn't include. That story could have been so much more impactful. And so I inboxed her. I was like, I know you don't know me. I was like, but the woman who was interviewing her, I know her, right? So at least there was some commonality between the two of us. And I was like, I just want to connect with you and just talk about your story. So I spent 2 sessions with her. And now she's one of the faces up here for the American Heart Association. Just from helping her just add those details, tug on those heartstrings a little. Like, I know we only had 30 minutes. So like I gave you the fast version of my knee story. But if we had more time and I gave you the longer version, that definitely would have illustrated what I just stated. Because every time I tell that story, like people are glued in. Because like you can tell when people drift or the eyes are looking away or whenever people are on their phones, you're speaking live. But like everybody was dialed in just the way I told the story.
How can people find out more about you and check out your social media platforms?
Yeah, so when I got into all of this, I had different things going on. So unfortunately, I don't have just one handle for everything. But the best is on Facebook. It's the handles at Robert B. Foster. So that's easy. Instagram, it's Robert B. Foster, but it's Robert_B_Foster. And then you can email me, rob@robertbfoster.com.
Excellent. I really enjoyed this conversation and keep up the great work and great inspiring stories.
Thank you. Again, thanks for having me.